Hey guys, it's Ash and P.
Oh my gosh. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. I'm a little bit of a stickler. A stricter? No, a
Stickler?
stickler. A stickler. There's that word. Pickle.
You're a strict stickler.
Strict stickler. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, did I just step in his piss? That's what I'm thinking, right? Hey guys, it's Ash and P.
No. We're back.
Yeah. Yep. That one. Good thing you can slice. Good thing you can slice. Oh my gosh.
Music is by Dust Bowl Champion. To hear Dust Bowl Champion's newest hits, search Dust Bowl Champion on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your music. Hey guys, it's Ash and P.
Hey.
A little bit of a wild ride for us this evening.
I know. It's been one of those days.
I know. Well, for you, one of those days. But
How was your day?
my day was very easy. I just was at church and then I came home and I started re-listening to some stuff for today's episode. And yeah, very easy. Not like you.
Well, that's
Laboring
wonderful.
and
Yes. I have gold glittery hands. Tony goes, "What were you doing? Where have you been?"
picking up a side job. What are you
Yeah.
gonna do?
Yeah, he
You guys are in
probably
a great
wishes.
market for that, so.
I also just got word that someone I know recently moved to the area
Oh,
and might have this on their bodies on a normal.
someone that you're pretty close with?
No, I'm not close with them, but
Okay.
I know I'm close with other people that they are close with, and so I was like, oh, okay. Well,
Oh,
we might be doing something a little different. We might be living a little different life, but
yes.
very
Okay.
interesting.
So are they younger than us?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
That's funny because I don't know if you recall hearing about this, but years back, um, you know, obviously it's relatively, as far as California goes, living in Fresno, Clovis area, it's inexpensive to live here. But you can make a lot of money doing that type of stuff in Vegas. So there was an article about this chick who, and I don't think she was the only one, but she lived in town and would fly out to Vegas to work and, just
Yes,
commute. Yeah. But this person that you know of decided to full on commit and move.
yes. So apparently they've fully committed to living here, and doing this for their living. Um, to each his own. But uh, yes, so I remember coming to Vegas a few times, and the planes would be full from Fresno, and I would be like, how, like, really? Like, that many people go to Vegas from Fresno? Well, then come to find out, like, people come for the weekend and work like in the clubs and whatever, and then they fly back home. And it's worth the money. And so it pays
Yeah, that's
over that, to where it makes it worth it for them. But I've heard that a lot before. I honestly, it's so funny because I didn't quite understand it when people said it. Um, Everyone said that people that live here don't ever really go to the strip. And it's so true. Like, I felt so bizarre because I needed to go to an actual Nordstrom the other day, and it couldn't be the Rack. It had to be the Nordstrom, and the closest one was going to be at fashion show with like the mall that's right on the strip,
yeah.
across from Trump Towers. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to go to the strip just to go to the store, all because I need a damn Skims that they don't have online right now in my size. Fine. So
Oh,
I went and I mean I was in and out, right? I mean, and it takes me like 15 minutes to get there, but it's just one of those things like we never go down there. Traffic is always terrible, number one. And there's just so much to do and so many places to do things around the area that going to the strip is not like a thing, you know?
Yeah, I could see that living there, that it would not be where you would want to go.
No.
Too many tourists there, so just too busy, too congested. I wouldn't want to do that kind of thing either. So I could totally see that.
Yeah, yeah. I
But
mean, when people are in town and they want to go and they want to do things, and that's fine. Like for entertainment, well, we find things. Sometimes it's near the strip, sometimes it's on the strip, sometimes it's not, whatever. I don't mind, but it's just not a thing that we really think of doing like on a normal, when people are
yeah,
like, oh, do you go, oh, do you da 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 da, da," and it's like, well, no, like there's other things that we usually end up doing, but
yeah,
um, there's definitely plenty to do besides that. So,
yeah. I know. When last weekend when we were at the event, someone asked how like, oh, but she's liking the area, that kind of thing. I'm like, oh yeah, they love the area. Like there's a lot to do. It's it also where you guys live has that like small town vibe. It's
100%.
not
Yes.
wild. So
It's
I was
like
like, yeah, absolutely.
it's like where we were from, but like you have everything at your fingertips, right? So like it feels very small towny like where we were from, but then like you have every store imaginable, every restaurant imaginable all at your fingertips. And so your your world is just more open to things than, you had, but which is really cool. I love
Yeah.
it. You don't have to, there's not like one Whole Foods that's all the way across town, takes you 30 minutes to get to
Yeah.
in order to go to a Whole Foods.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I know. I think I was talking with Lynn's maybe, and I was saying, gosh, like I was talking to her while I was doing some returns, and she's like, "Where are you doing returns this late at night?" Well, I was at Kohl's doing a bunch of Amazon returns, and she was like, "Oh yeah," I said. I accidentally did one for Whole Foods. I'm like, I'm not driving all the way across town. There's just not a Whole Foods near me, So I'm like, I'm not driving all the way across town to do a return. No, thank you. So yeah, that's like where I'm at. If I wanted to do a Whole Foods run, it would have to be real special. I don't know. I never go there because it's just
Yeah.
not close.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I,
Yeah. Yeah.
to be honest, I'm not even a huge fan of going out to River Park. I don't know. It needs to
No,
be much
I never,
closer.
when I lived there, I never did. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't
No,
know.
I stayed in my bubble.
Hmm.
Totally stayed in my bubble.
Yeah, I know, and I'm so excited that we have some things opening up over here eventually. Target's like they're really getting down on the building for Target, um, but I
But
can't
do you
wait
think
until stuff.
everything's going to be like totally locked up at your Target? Like, I feel like everything's going to be locked up
Yeah,
at
I
your
mean
Target.
everything's locked up at the Clovis Walmart. Like you want to
Well,
get
I
some
don't know.
makeup,
I didn't
it's
really go
locked up.
there.
Yeah, I know you're too good for
Yeah.
Walmart. Yeah. That's why I said the work that you did for Target, no, thank you. You still did your shopping, hoe. Um, yeah, but I mean, I guess if I go over to the Target over, down the road, not the Clovis one, but the one down off of is it
Willow?
is that where it is? But if I go over there, then I could probably be able to tell what it'll look like. I would guess. I mean, there's so many homeless people. Not that they're the only ones, but I'm just
I
saying I think
know.
everything like, you know,
I know.
if that's like what's around, then that's kind of the clientele is not
Well,
going to be that high.
really quick before we get on our topic, I have to tell you it's so interesting. So yesterday, apparently was the first day that we took our girls to a mall. like an indoor, like I mean we've done lots of shopping like outdoor
Oh.
malls, like they just don't see it as a mall because it's outdoor shopping. You are walking the outdoor street to get into each and every store. We took them to a mall yesterday and they were blown away. They just could not believe what they were like. What is a mall? What is a
So
mall,
you,
Mom?
okay, and I say this with a little bit of like, because it is what it is, but you never took them into Sierra Vista? There's
I
nothing really to shop in Sierra Vista.
I don't
So
think
I could
so.
imagine they would not be that amused
Yeah,
there.
I don't think I did. If I did, maybe I did run them into
Just to Bath and Body
like
Works.
Bath and Body Works and out. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I just, but normally when I go shopping, even anywhere, I never would take my kids with me because it's just more work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm
That's so
too
funny.
lazy for that. I don't
Well,
want to
I
do that.
guess, you're not really hitting up malls either.
No. And for the most part, if I'm running into a store, I probably either have like a pickup order or, you know what I
Yes.
mean? Like
Yes.
I'm really trying to keep it really simple and basic. But yeah, I guess maybe not. And they just were like, okay. But anyway, it was really cute. Danny had to do some shopping for a birthday party that she got invited to. And so took her to the store or took her to the mall and like let her do some shopping, and we went to a few stores, and I got to tell you, Macy's has just been so downhill like
Yeah.
for so long. I cannot believe
Are they
how
closing?
they should. I don't even, I mean, really. And it's embarrassing. And I was like, I sound so bougie to be like, oh, Nordstrom is so much better. But it actually looks like a real department store, like a nice department store versus Macy's is just terrible. It's so run down. They have nothing ever. And I thought maybe it was just our area. And then I've gone to two different Macy's here and I'm like, no, they're just the same. It's
Yeah,
the same.
I know. I never go to Macy's because I never find I don't know what it is. Why you can't find anything there
I
anymore.
I used to love going to San Francisco and going into the Macy's, and I felt like I always found stuff at the San Francisco Macy's, always. And
Maybe you
then,
need to go to the San Francisco Macy's and
oh,
check.
I'm not going to San Francisco ever until they pick up all their needles off the ground. Like, no, thank you. Uh, I would like to not catch like AIDS or hep or something. I don't even know what's going on down there. It's not happening. I am not going to the Bay.
Oh, you're so funny. Yeah.
But no, I just was like, oh my gosh, it's like everywhere. Every Macy's is just terrible now. So I don't know. Just a little thought on that.
Well, I don't know why I thought maybe they'd be closing, but um for some reason I felt like maybe they were bankrupting or something like that. And I know a while back I heard the story where someone had stole like a ton of money from like
Oh,
one of their employees did.
oh,
I can't remember the details about it, but it was they had they had stolen a lot of money from them. So,
huh.
I don't know. But yeah, I know. It used to be like I remember going shopping there for like formal dresses and stuff,
Formal
you know?
dresses, even like when you wanted to find like good jeans or
Yeah.
something, or shoes, it's like you went to
Oh
Macy's for
yeah.
those things,
That's where I got my shoes for your wedding. Uh,
and you just cannot find anything there anymore.
no, because I've tried looking for like boots there, like
Yeah,
could not find anything. So
no.
anytime I'm looking for something, if Jason's like, "Do you want to go?" I'm like, "No," because I feel like there's never anything, and I feel like it's so discombobulated too. Like
Yeah,
everything's all mixed in together. Nothing's like in its. I don't know. It's kind of a disaster nowadays.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I do most of my shopping on Amazon, so I'm not that good.
I know, I
I don't
know,
know. I'm an
I know.
online shopper.
Me too.
And I'm like old lady now, so it's not
Yeah.
like I'm going to find trendy stuff, but does Macy's have trendy stuff?
Also, is Forever 21 closing?
They are.
Okay.
Yes.
So when I was in the mall, I passed it Forever 21 and it said like everything must go and like all, and I'm like, are they all closing or is this just this one? But I would assume that it would be all of them if this one is closing. But
Oh, you know what? Also, Volcom is closing. If you guys have a Volcom in your mall,
oh,
that's, I don't know if you have a need for
hmm.
anything from there, but
Well, we are so like into, we really love shopping at Sam's Club and Costco for our clothes. We're at that point in our lives. Okay. Those are the stores
hey,
that we're going to go
Costco and
to in person.
Amazon.
And then everything else is going to be online. Like pretty much that's it.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to, I mean, I'm not kidding. Like some of my favorite clothes are from Sam's Club. And Tony's favorite clothes are from Costco. And I said something to him today. I said like I just can't find something and he goes, "That's how I feel. After Costco season, I can never find those." I can't.
Oh my gosh, that's great. It's it's just crazy because the thing about it is that you're going into Costco, you're going into Sam's for these other things. So you can go and grab that, right? To go and shop somewhere else, you have to be going for that.
Yeah.
And do you really want to make a trip to a store for that?
Yeah.
Deal with the parking, deal with also, I don't know, I mean, I think it's gotten better since COVID, but like after COVID, how no one allowed you to try any, like you couldn't go into fitting rooms or whatever.
Oh,
You
yeah.
couldn't try clothes on. Well,
Yeah.
I'm never gonna buy something from a store without trying it on because it's just unlikely that it's gonna work out for me.
Oh,
So
100%.
Costco, Sam's Club, easy returns, easy
Yes.
to do returns there. But otherwise, no, like I don't want to do that.
Okay, really quick, I have to tell you. I go to Nordstrom's and I'm looking for Skims so that I can look skinny next weekend.
Dumb, dumb, dumb.
And the girl's like, "Can I help you?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, this is what I'm looking for, and I don't know which one." She's like, "Okay, well, I would do this one or this one." And I was like, "Well, I don't know which one I'm gonna like more." And she's like, "One's like shorts, which I have Spank shorts. I have the
Yeah.
Spanks, but I've never tried the brand Skims before." And so I'm like, I don't know. I said, I kind of just think I want like just either like a full bodysuit, but it has to be like really low back, which wasn't going to work anyway because my straps, it wasn't going to work. But and then they had like a high waisted like tummy control thong, and I'm like, okay, let me try. Maybe I should get that one and the shorts. And she's like, look, get whichever ones you want, and then just bring back whatever doesn't work out. And I'm like, really? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, okay, well, I feel like that's kind of weird, like to return, but
Skims.
Skims,
Well, I mean, if girl, you never heard the stories about stuff that would get returned at Victoria's Secrets?
no. But I'm like, okay. So I'm like, well, okay, it's fine. I'm gonna leave my underwear on anyway. So I'm gonna try them
Yeah.
on. And so I go to put the shorts on, and I'm like, I heard, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then I like put my finger in like in my thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my vagina just ripped these shorts. There's a fucking hole
Why
in them.
vagina's so massive?
I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, I'm thinking it's so strong. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. And so I'm like, oh, this is so embarrassing. I'm like, well, I can't return these now. So I pull them all the way up, whatever, and I'm like trying them on, and then I go to pull them down. I'm an idiot. They have a pee hole in the bottom. Okay. My
Yeah, yeah.
vagina did not tear them.
You might have a strong vagina. It just didn't tear the skims.
No. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. I was so scared thinking my vagina just ate these shorts up in like 1 second.
Did either of them work?
I think I'm gonna just do the thong. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that was the better. I think that one stayed tighter up higher.
Okay.
The only thing I'm worried about is like, I got big hips. So
That's what I
like,
hate about those.
yeah. So we're gonna see. We're gonna see. I don't get my dress back until Wednesday. So
Okay.
we'll see.
Okay. Well, that's
Either way, I'm probably not
exciting.
going to return either one of them. I'm just going to keep them because I can probably use
Well,
that
yeah,
one,
if they
you know?
both fit at some point. I know.
Yeah.
I know. I sent a picture to Linz. I was like, this is an option. I will be wearing my Spanx. And Nancy's like, I don't care. I'm like, so that you can't see all my stuff. Like, all my flab
Yeah,
just is not looking good. But
exactly.
I didn't want to put my Spanx on to try it on. Just be, you
It's a
know
lot of work.
why?
It's a lot of
It
work.
is. So I
Yeah.
didn't do it. So I was just like
I
just
mean,
imagine it
no,
looks a little better.
I was like, this is going to give me a cramp. And I'm like, to get them on. And the girl did tell
Mhm.
me, she's like, they're really tight, so it's gonna be tough. Well, I was like, oh my gosh, that's why I thought my vagina broke them because it was so hard to put on.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, I'm glad that you didn't break either one, just so that you can use them in the future.
Yes.
But I'm glad that you found some that work.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
speaking of strong vaginas,
Yes.
we're going to talk a little bit about what we're going through in our entire bodies, not just there, not just that region.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately. Not unfortunately. You're welcome that we're not just going to talk about vaginas today.
Yes.
But yeah, and I just wish it was easier. It's a lot. It's kind of like complicated in
Well,
it is, but it isn't.
I think some of our listeners are around our age, and so they
Yeah.
get the whole perimenopause. And I think some of our listeners are on the younger side of us. And so for those of you who are not perimenopause yet, well, it's coming, and
Want to avoid it.
and we can't avoid it. And as women, I think the greatest thing is that honestly, no matter what background you come from, no matter how healthy you are or how healthy you are not, I think that we're all talking about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really good. And I think that's really important. And I think that that's something that we've talked so much. I think that we've heard so much about menopause growing
Right.
up. Like our generation heard a lot about menopause growing up. Not until much later into our growing up, but we still did. We know a lot about menopause. We know that there are things that we know that look, if you take, you know, you can you can take medicine, you can take things for your menopause, for your hormones, but like everything, you know, there's pros and cons, right, as to
Yeah.
what you take, and what chemicals you're putting into your body, and versus like more of the holistic approach to the medications that you're taking for your hormones. But perimenopause, I feel like, is something that really hasn't been talked about until recently.
Yeah. Agreed.
And what I am learning and loving is that what I'm hearing, and both Ashley and I have listened to a doctor on a couple different podcasts, and she actually has her own podcast that's very informative about women's health. And she really specializes on women that are on women's health, and then very specific on perimenopause and menopausal women as well. And talking about your hormones and your body and knowing things about your body and how well do we actually know our body. And
Yeah.
so what I tripped out about so much is that I know when I'm eating not right. I know when my diet is taking a turn. I know when my diet is on point. I know when my workouts are on point, and I know when I'm slacking off. And I try to gauge all of that, and like I give myself some grace on certain times, but I know when to like rein it back and pull it in and all that kind of stuff. But what I really didn't understand was what my body was going through at certain points in my month, and throughout the month, what my body is doing, where it is, and how it's changed today than it was maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I I think for obviously I am a lot less healthy, and I've never paid any attention to any of anything about health related, right? Like sometimes here and there I would eat less of this, do less of that type of stuff. But I never really focused on what I was eating necessarily until I know early on when we started back recording, P had mentioned RFJK Jr., but this doctor is actually who I listened to, and what really changed when I was like, okay, I have to make some real changes. And it is because of the way she explained how our bodies are responding to the foods that we're eating and what our bodies actually need during certain times of our cycle, that I was like, whoa, like mind blown. I I had no idea that during this part of my cycle I needed more of this because of the hormones that I needed, to like I need more estrogen at this point. So I really need to feed my body what estrogen needs, and I need more progesterone during this time, and I need to feed the body what progesterone needs, and those types of things. I had no clue about any of that type of stuff. And just really about the like imbalance of hormones that so many of us actually have, was just astonishing when I first listened to her. It was like she talks about fasting and that type of stuff and all of the great things that fasting does for the body, but the changes as far as what you should be eating during the different parts of your cycle, and how you should be eating. Like I had no idea that anything like that. I mean, you just think like, okay, you eat healthy. You eat healthy, right? You should be eating healthy all the time. You should be eating fruits. You should be eating vegetables. You should be eating proteins, all of those types of things. But it really is, during a certain time of the month, you need more of this stuff. And I had no idea. So I love her stuff. I have two of her books. One is like a book slash cookbook ish type thing. It seems like I haven't gotten fully into it. Um, but the first book I read was The Fast Like a Girl. Um, and it changed like my whole mindset. Like honestly, through the month, I will look at like, okay, I know during this time I need to be having more fruits because I need more of those sugars for that part of my cycle. So I love it. And I was so excited when P listened to it, because I was like, yes, yes.
Well, I think like I said, I think what's interesting is like learning enough about like what your body may be lacking and when it's good to do things. I didn't realize like I shouldn't fast the week before my period was about to start. That would not be good. That's actually not going to help me burn fat. That's actually not going to help me speed up my metabolism. That's actually not going to help me build my muscle. And so but everything makes so much sense. So, we're going to talk about Dr. Mindy when we get back. I want to take a quick break. And then we will make sure we share all of this information with you guys on where you can listen to her as well. So we're right
Yeah.
back. Segment music by Callie Grace. For more of Callie Grace's hits, follow Callie Grace on iTunes and Spotify today. Hey guys, we're back.
Hey.
Okay, so before the break, we were kind of talking a little bit about perimenopause and what is happening to our bodies, and kind of the light bulb going off for both of us when we heard Dr. Mindy Pelz. And I first heard her on a different podcast, not her own. She does have her own podcast, but I heard her on a different one. I heard her on Diary of a CEO.
Yes.
And and when she's talking about, I listened to two of them, which one of them was Fast Like a Girl and one of them was Eat Like a Girl. I just thought, wow, like it makes so much sense. It seems so simple. Why is it so hard? And we've talked a lot about this at, like, honestly, I know I give you a lot of shit from your for your JRFK Jr. Only because truly it is a complete flip for you, especially. And the hard part about it is 100% true, and you can listen to so many different people right now. You can listen to doctors, you can listen to people in the health industry, and they are all saying the same thing about our food. Our food is toxic in so many ways here in our country, and it's terrible. But how do you completely avoid all of the toxicity? It's just, for an everyday person, it's pretty much almost impossible. And what I loved about Dr. Mindy is when she was talking about it and she brings it up, like, look, you can stay away from fast food as much as possible. You can do all of these things. But even the healthy foods are still going to have chemicals, toxic things inside of them for your body, things that honestly other countries are not allowing in their own foods, but we are allowing in our foods. And so when she talks about what do you do with that? What do you do as a normal person? How am I going to avoid? Because that's been my thing. Look, I try to be very realistic about my living. I am not going to avoid every single bad food. It's not going to happen. So how am I supposed to live a healthy life if even the healthy things I'm eating are being toxic? And that's when she really starts breaking down fasting and what that actually does for your body, which I absolutely love when she talks about it. So, what did you take away from Dr. Mindy? Because you kind of first found her before I did.
Yeah, so I actually, that was the podcast that I found her on. It wasn't her own. It was the Diary of a CEO. And it was a coworker had sent it to me because he was talking about how like with menopause, that like women that will be going into menopause and women that are menopausal, and all of the effects that, like, our hormone imbalances and the changes within our body, everything that affects our total health. And so they had sent it to me. So I was listening to it and I was like, oh my gosh, like, just, I was taking notes like a mad woman, because she just, I mean, just really, like you were saying, everything has toxins in it. Everything is, I mean, whether it's organic, this is or that, things are in our waters. There's, fragrances and things like
Grass
that.
fed, blah, blah, cage
Yes.
free, blah, blah. It all still has things. There are
Yes, there's
so many.
yes, there's still stuff in it. So I think like the biggest thing is obviously eliminating what you can, staying away from the things that you can, trying to avoid these additives, these preservatives, these processed foods, different things like that, trying to stay as close to like what she talks a lot in that podcast about, like, go back to what our primitive ancestors were doing. And so I feel like that's kind of the way our eating should be. We need to be doing that. We need to be eating things that are coming from the ground. However, they are going to have toxins and things like that. Like, things are still going to be in there. But I think that learning how you should be eating it what times of the month you should be eating these things is huge. And then, like, she talks about fasting. Fasting is huge. And one of the biggest things I think from when I first listened to it, one of the things that really stood out to me was when she was talking about fasting. And then once you get over, I want to say it's at 17 hours that you start to hit autophagy. And that's when your body will start healing itself. And for me, because I have, my back problems, stuff like that, that's what kind of stood out to me the most, because I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I start doing this type of stuff, like if I start to fast, and I they say fasting helps with a lot of different things, but in autophagy, it's when your body starts to clear out all of the bad stuff. So it starts really getting rid of all these toxins. So all of the stuff that we're getting into our bodies from, everything under the sun. And then it's also getting rid of the bad cells, like cells that can become cancerous. It's repairing cells that are damaged. And that type of thing to me was huge because, one, I'm like, okay, well, pretty much everyone gets cancer now, it seems like, right? Like one form of cancer or another, it seems like so many people get cancer now. So I'm like, okay, if I can do like a 3 to 5 day fast, like 4 times a year, because she doesn't say like you need to be fasting like this every day, right? Like there's a time and a place when you should be fasting, especially for women. Like men and women should not be fasting the same way. It does not, your body as a woman does not take those types of changes the way that a man's body does. So you need to pay attention to that type of stuff. But I was just thinking, like, if I could get my body to start healing the stuff with my back, if I could get those changes to start happening, then that would be huge for me. Like we had mentioned on the last podcast, I take a medication every day for my nerves in my legs, and it makes me loopy. Like I forget words. It messes obviously with my brain, and that's not a great thing. But it's also unfortunately something that, unless I want to probably never sleep and go crazy, I have to do it. So if my body could repair itself to where I don't have to take that stuff anymore, that would be phenomenal. So that was one of the things that stuck out to me the most in the first one. Um, the healing itself and getting rid of those cells that could become cancerous. That was like huge for me. But then realizing that to balance my hormones, I could eat differently throughout my cycle so that those hormones are being fed what they need to be fed was like takeaway two, I think. What about you? What was your
So for me, of course, it's different. It's to me it was um figuring out your best fat burning times throughout like your month, and what you can nourish your body with and what you can actually do without, and when to actually give it and remove it from. Feeding myself, nourishing my body with, obviously you want to eat healthy at all times, but being a little bit more lenient and being able to say, give your body the fats, give your body the whatever the week before your cycle is going to start. Was like, oh, I guess it kind of does, like you're preparing your body for something, right? You're preparing your body for what's about to come. And then understanding that once your cycle starts, okay, then things start to change actually in your body. And then you can change your diet a little. And then you can fast between this day and this day, and you're actually going to burn more than than you would, and what's actually burning at different times, and the longer you fast, the better your chances are of building your metabolism again. Because I think for me, I go through these phases where I'm stagnant, I can't lose. I'm not gaining, but I can't lose. Um, I even when I've had very, very clean, I've gone Whole 30. I've done everything, cut everything out. Um, I might lose, you know, 2 pounds. It's
I have
not
a
coming
question.
off. Yeah.
Does Whole 30 can you do fruits?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Um, it's like basically no grains, no wheat, um, no no dairy, that kind of stuff. Which I know dairy is a huge part of dairy is a huge issue for women. I really feel like our body does not process dairy well. And I notice it within my own body when I cut dairy out. I love cheese, so it's very hard to say no to. But when I cut dairy out, it actually does make a huge difference in my body. Um, I think where I'm at in my life right now, I'm trying to find the balance because I'm not there to like mentally, I'm not in a place, and I've tried to get myself there for a few months, and I don't know if it's just I don't know. It's like where I just am in life right now. I'm not ready and I'm not willing to just like cut all the shit and go back to being strict and cutting whatever. And maybe it's that I don't have I don't know. My life is so different right now than it was a year ago. And so I'm not in a place where I want to do any of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can try and help my situation a little and like make sure that I am making some of the right decisions, some of the right choices. I've changed my workouts dramatically since in the last few months, and really focused way more on heavy weightlifting, and less on cardio, which is huge for women of our age, especially. And even with boxing, and I loved boxing. I just enjoyed it so much. And there is some weight element to it. There's some resistance training with that, but it is still very cardio heavy. And I've learned to cut it down to where I'm not focused so much. I mean, cardio is a minimal part of my workout. It's still part of my workout. It still helps me mentally, physically, emotionally. And there are days where that's all I'll do is cardio. There's like yesterday, I just ran. I ran 4 miles. It's like that's my workout. But then there are many days where I don't have any cardio. It's weights, and I I've learned to adapt myself to those new environments. But what I'm saying is like listening to our bodies, I think it's really important. I would really recommend anyone, even men. So the thing that I loved about listening to her on Diary of a CEO is, um, it's a guy
Yeah.
who's interviewing her,
Yeah.
and he's talking to her like, oh my gosh, like these are things I wouldn't have thought about with my own employees, with my own wife or whatever, his girlfriend, whatever she was. Like these are things for him to take away to think about as these women are going through these changes throughout the month too. And so it becomes more of like, she's on her period, less of that, and more of understanding really how our body is really changing because our bodies are so different than men. And it's really interesting to me. So going back to like my readings every morning, I was in the New Testament for many months, and I went back to the Old Testament, and I started with Genesis, 1:1. It's like, okay, let's start from the beginning. Let's go. Um, and as I'm reading it, it was so funny because I'm like, okay, everyone's like 800 years old, right? Like they're living
Yeah.
forever. And not that I want to live to be 800, but I'm like, isn't it insane how long people lived before? and how much of that has shortened. Like, it's pretty crazy. I mean, I think like if our grandparents lived to be like 85, they're old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh
it's crazy.
yeah. Yeah, I know. And talking about like living longer in the episode, she mentions like when she was trying to help her dad and he didn't have like enough arm strength to even lift himself out of a chair, and how the like muscle is the longevity. Like what does she say? The organ of longevity is what she says. And that um like you were saying, you kind of cut out cardio, you do some cardio, but your main focus is on weights. And that is really what we should be doing as we're getting older. Not that walking, that there's anything wrong with walking or running. Like you see a lot of times older people are walking, and that's great. Like you want to get some exercise in, but really strength training, and it doesn't have to be wild. Like last episode, I was saying I want to lay on the couch. But if I really laid on the couch with my legs in the air and did resistance bands and like did flutters, it would still be building muscle. Now I can't just lay on the couch for everything, unfortunately. As much as I would love to, I can't. But like actually building our muscle is so important to keep us going and keep us as we get older into like these areas where we can actually remain able. You know what I
Well,
mean? Like as I
yeah.
get older, if I don't make changes as far as exercising goes, as I get older, I'm going to be like my grandma. I'm going to fall a lot. Like my grandma would fall a lot. And that's scary as you get older.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to be able to move myself around as easily. I'm not going to be able to, get myself up out of bed the way that I can now, which is still even harder than it was when I was 20. Let's be realistic. I'm much heavier than I was when I was 20. I have less muscle, I'm sure. And those types of things, it's like you don't want to live out the last, you know, 20, 30, 40 years of your life not being able to do things. I think about like when people say like I want to live a long life. I want to live a long life if I'm healthy. If I'm not healthy, I don't want to live a long time because I don't want to be a burden on people, and I don't want to be like in pain myself. Like really keeping yourself active and doing all of these things is huge for how you are going to feel as you get older, you
Well,
know?
look, and she says it too. She's like, look, weight training is not going to, it may not change the scale. It may
Yeah.
not make you, lose any weight, but it'll change your body. It'll change the shape of your body.
Which that's
Um,
what's important,
that is
you
what's
know?
important. And I think that we're young enough to have a balance. I'm young and healthy enough to have a balance of both. I just know that it's more important for me to focus on that. And it's funny because I had this argument with a gentleman back in Clovis when I was still there, and I was starting to like move away from the cardio and really get into the weightlifting more. And he said, um, well, why wouldn't you just do both? And I said, your body and my body are very different. And what my body needs is going to be different. And it's not that I'm saying that I am going to do both. But what I'm saying is my limit, if my focus on my workout has to limit the cardio a little bit more. I can't do cardio 6 days a week anymore. It's not
No.
doing anything for me. I have to change it. And so the only way for me to change it is to shift gears and say, okay, 40 minutes of weights, 20 minutes of cardio, or all weights 3 days and then cardio 2 days, or whatever it is that my workout is. But I have to limit the cardio and I have to up my strength training. And that means that I can go heavier and I can lift more and I can lift longer and whatever it is. But my body is different. It just is. I'm not a young chicken. And to be quite honest, not that there's anything wrong if you are out there and you listen to us and you're a runner, and that's great. But runners are thin. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But I don't want to just be thin, you know.
Yeah.
I want to have muscle, I want to have definition, I want to have tone, and not just in my legs and my arms and everywhere, you know. And so my focus is I have to change what I'm doing. And I really do think though it's important for women our age to pick up weights
Yeah.
and really do it, you know.
And in that podcast, again, it's a Diary of a CEO, and her name's Mindy Pelz, Dr. Mindy Pelz. It was recorded about a year ago. That particular one. That's where she really talks about fast like a girl. And in that episode, she does state that cardio breaks down muscle. So when you look at, marathon runners, they are, yes, they are thin, but they don't have a lot of tone muscle because that is being broken down. But the cardio, and I have a good friend, and she is like, she wants to run. Like, she gets stressed out, she wants to hit the treadmill. She is like, feeling anxious, hit the treadmill,
Because it's great
because
mentally.
it's a mind exercise. It
Yes,
really does.
gets your endorphins
It
going.
does. So there is value in it, and she
Absolutely.
said, like, I'm not tearing anyone down. It's just that you do need to have muscle.
Yes,
So there's benefits for both, obviously,
absolutely.
but as we age, we tend to lose muscle, and we really need to be gaining it.
Well, it's funny because without my husband even listening to the podcast, he had one day we were talking about something, and I said, "Oh my gosh!" I was like, "I think I had just come in from the gym, from the garage, and it was an arm day, and I'm like, I freaking hate arm days." And he's like, "I hate leg days," and I go, "Oh, see, I feel like I can do legs for like an hour and a half, and I keep going." And he goes, "I don't." And he goes, "I hate it." He goes, "I feel like it's too much. It's almost that cardio type." And I go, "That's why I love it." There's something like my legs are very like I have stronger legs, right?
Nice legs.
And so like my glutes, my legs, my things like that's what I like. I love working on when I have to push myself to do arms. I have to push
Yeah.
myself to continue to keep it up because it's a challenge for me. And so for me, that's my challenge. For him, he's like, "Well, that's more cardio." And I'm like, "But cardio is my jam because cardio gets that's my that's my therapy, right? Like that's
Yeah.
why I'm crazy because I I I am a crazy person, but I get it out by getting out my endorphins and that kind of thing. But it was just kind of a funny thing that he said that, and I was like, "Well, that's probably why I like it."
Yeah.
Um,
I've never
and
thought of it like that, but that's kind of funny. And I wonder if that's why, people talk about guys like at the gym, and like it's like they always skip leg day. Like they never miss arm day, but they always skip leg day. And I wonder if that's what it is that it feels so much like cardio. So guys don't,
yep,
guys are obviously upper body strength. They
yes,
are going to be better with that than we are. Like, they're going
yes,
to have more upper body strength than we
yes,
will. So I wonder if that is just easier for them. Not saying that weights
no,
is easy by any means, but
right.
just that activity, they play better with that,
Well, and
whereas women maybe down below.
I wonder
Down
that
below? Oh,
too.
just kidding.
Not where the powerful vaginas that just
Just bust the skims.
just bust those skims wide open. No, I wonder that too, and I wonder, I feel like for men, there's something about like I'm sure I feel like they almost get like this high of like the
Yeah, like
of
pumping
like the
iron, like, yeah,
pumping it, right? Pumping. And I feel like that's not I don't feel that when I'm like lifting up here, but if I'm doing something with my legs and I'm like I'm full on sweating, right? Because I'm like, "Oh God, okay, here we go. Okay, nope, you could do it. 10 more, 5 more." And I'm like talking to myself in my head. but there's something about the power in my legs. I don't know. Like it is kind of funny. It is funny to think about that. I wonder what our men listeners would say about that. We can't expect Jason to say anything about it because he doesn't use his legs or his
Yeah.
arms. But
Mm-mm.
maybe those that do use their arms or legs, they can let us know
Yeah,
what they
can let
think.
us know. Yeah. That's really funny. I'm gonna have to ask Kyla too because
Yeah, yeah.
she trains lower body, which is she's not, I don't want to say she's built like her dad because she's not built like her dad, but she does have like she has a booty. Jason has a booty. Hers is much more formed, with all of her
Yeah.
weight she does.
Oh,
But like when she was,
she could tear the skims.
yeah,
She could rip
she
those
would tear
skims.
the skims for sure. But
Uh-huh.
like even before she started doing weightlifting, her legs were always built like Jason's. Jason, and Hayden have the same legs. And even like Jason doesn't do any exercises, and people will be like, "Oh, like you have nice like his
His
calves are
calves.
always."
Hmm.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, it's annoying. I know. All I do is I get fatter and he does nothing and his legs still look nice. It's annoying. But like that when she mentioned in the episode that her coach said,
Your
let's play
strength.
on your genetics.
Hmm.
And that's like that is her thing. So I'm gonna have to ask her how, because obviously she does do arms too, but she focuses on her lower body mostly. So I'm
Yeah.
going to ask her what her thoughts are on that too. And I
Yeah.
wonder if it would be different for like a guy like Jason if he were to do that, even though he has like his legs are pretty toned. I wonder if he would prefer to lift weights. I
Yeah.
almost feel like he wouldn't.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know. I just feel like his legs have more muscle than his arms.
Tony is definitely like stronger in his chest and
Yeah.
arms. My poor husband does not have a big booty. So
No.
his, his power is not coming from back there. Um, so, yeah, maybe it's just depending on how your body is shaped too and I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
like the genetics, the way your
yeah,
muscles really are,
yeah,
that's wild.
yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. I do want to go over because I know we're getting a little long into the podcast, and so I don't know if we'll have to go into another episode about some of the stuff that we learned from Dr. Mindy. But for those of you that um, are interested, there are essentially four sections of your cycle that you want to look at. Days 1 through 10. So this would be your first day of your period to 10 days. That is considered your menstruation period. Even if you've stopped bleeding, up to 10 days is your power phase. So that's phase one, power phase one. We do get a second power phase. So the ideal food types for this window are ketobiotic. So it's going to be very similar to like a keto type diet, high proteins, things like that. In those 10 days, fasting windows can be anywhere from 13 hours to 72 hours. So whenever I'm looking at when I'm going to do a longer fast, a lot of times I don't, like from dinner until later in the day, I won't eat a lot of the time. So I do have like fasting windows for a lot of my cycle. But when I'm wanting to do like a 1, 2, or 3 day fast, it's typically going to be in that window. You could do it obviously when during power phase two. I don't know why. It just always seems easier to me in that window. But days 11 to 15, that's your manifestation, and that's during like ovulation window. Um, Also, she says that if you have a project or like you have say you're creating a business or something like that, that window is like the powerhouse window to do those things. So manifestation, food type during that would be hormone fasting. So, shoot, I wish I had my little list of like what hormone fasting, or sorry, hormone feasting. But this is going to be more of like your fruits and things like that. Are you looking for it, P?
I think I have it. Go ahead and keep
Um,
talking though.
so this window, the days 11 to 15, if you're going to be doing fasting, fasting between 13 and 15 hours. So you're not going to do a long fast during those windows because you're kind of, it's not going to be as much as right before your period, but you're kind of nurturing your body a little bit more during this window. You're wanting to kind of feed it in this ovulation window. Um, Days 16 through 19, that's going to be power phase 2. And that is going to be, again, ketobiotic, so very similar to keto. And your fasting window is going to be 13 to 72 hours again. So if you maybe like in the beginning of my cycle, I get really bad cramps. So I'm not that friendly. I'm not that happy. The first couple of days of my cycle, like days 1 through 3, I'm probably never going to fast just because I'm not that happy in that time frame. I just hurt. So, like for some people that maybe fasting during your period doesn't sound appealing, maybe power phase 2 is a better time frame to do one of the longer fasts. And then days 20 to bleed, that is when you are actually it's the nurture phase. So you are actually nurturing your body. You are not fasting at all during that time frame. So you should be eating, if you are hungry, you should be eating. You are going to be doing hormone feasting at that point. So this is when you're going to feed your body those fruits, with the fruits obviously have natural sugars. So those types of things. Your potatoes, sweet potatoes, those kinds of things are going to be in the hormone feasting windows. So those are the time frame that you would be in the cycle, obviously. Depending on how long your cycle is, maybe in your nurture phase you're in there for 7 days, maybe you're only in there for 5 if you have a shorter cycle. But that is as far as how you should be eating and fasting. That's the way she breaks it out. And then, like Priscilla had mentioned, the week before your period, you kind of just want to be really kind to yourself. Like that's not a good time to fast. You want to give yourself a little bit of a break. Like she mentions in, which I loved, that I don't know the name of the guy do you know his name? The
I
Diary of a
don't
CEO guy?
know.
So it's horrible. It's his podcast that really turned me on to her, and I don't even know his name. But he is very like curious about how our cycles affect us and what we should be doing, and maybe when he should be nice, not nicer. I don't want to say that like he's not nice to his wife, but when he wants to kind of give her a little extra love, when he shouldn't approach her for things, different things like that. I really liked that he was so curious about that because he really actually did seem to care
Yeah.
like what he should be doing. But she mentions that like women, our work schedules are not necessarily ideal for our cycles. That day 20 into the bleed, maybe during that time, if it's possible, you don't have any big deadlines due. You don't have any big projects. That is going to be the time where you're wanting to kind of take it a little easier than, during that ovulation phase. You can kind of go full bore. You can be buck wild. Really, pretty much from day 1 until day 19, you're free to do all of that like hard work stuff, but 20 to bleed is when you need to be a little more gentle.
And I would say this, and I'm not even journaling it, which I think if I did, I would really it would really shock myself. Like I would really be blown away. But as I'm learning more about this and I see things, I'm going to give you an example. Let's take our friend, for example, who had a really rough week last week, right? Really rough week. And what was that? That was right before she was starting her
Yeah.
period.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, she had a really like she was not doing so well, you know,
Yeah.
and she was very emotional, very high strung, and she called it. She knew she was. Um, she had deadlines for work.
Yeah.
She was super stressed out about all of those things, and I think it's important that like I'm not trying to be like crunchy and say like don't work when you're going to start your period. Let's just be hippie doodah. I'm just saying, like, if you paid attention to your body enough, really, women watch their bodies when they are trying to conceive, right? When they are trying to get pregnant, that is probably one of the most watched times of our body that we pay attention to our body. We have to also pay attention to our body in later years too. We have to
Yeah.
also pay attention to our body when we're not trying to have a baby, when we're just to understand what our body is doing at different times of the month because it is operating differently at different times of the month. So I just think it's like one of those things where just because you're not tracking your cycle to conceive or to not conceive, there are other reasons to track your body and to understand what your body is going through at these times.
Yeah, definitely. I have not been able to conceive since 2009, and I still track my cycle
I do
because
too.
one, I don't want to be caught off guard and not have anything with me when I need
Yes.
it.
Yep.
That would be unfortunate. But then also too, as we get into these perimenopause and menopausal stages, which I had a girlfriend ask, what is perimenopause? You talk about perimenopause, and that's not something that I really have heard much about until recently. So perimenopause is going to be essentially when you are at the stage where your body is starting to experience some changes. So it may not be that you're not having a period or, you know, you're having hot flash. It may not be that. It could just be that maybe your estrogen is lowering, you know, like this is the before you hit menopause time frame.
Which people
Um,
they say like you can go through perimenopause for 3 years, you can go to perimenopause for like 10 years. Like
yes.
everyone's so different.
Yes. So premenopausal is going to be when you start to miss those periods. Like those types of things are going to be when you're premenopausal. But perimenopause, you do have these changes that your body is going through. And so, like, I actually last year I had my doctor do a blood test to test my hormones because I did start to notice that I after I had my kids, probably like within 5 years, I started having very, very heavy periods. They would be very long and they would be very heavy. And then I kind of started to notice my period was a little bit off. And so I was like, well, I wonder if I'm starting to go through the change. So I had my doctor actually do blood work. And no, like my levels are all fine. Everything's fine. I don't seem to be like menopausal, but I also am excited because now I have kind of a baseline. So if things do start happening and things start dropping, then I'm going to know like I can have blood work done and we can compare the two. But I do also like I notice things where I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not perimenopausal. I don't know. But I do start noticing changes in my cycle. I have noticed where like my period came a little bit late and normally I'm very on time, but it started coming late. And then I started having shorter periods and things like that to where I am still having a period each month. Nothing like that is happening yet. And sometimes I am just hot. Like I am so hot. I don't feel like I'm burning from inside most of the time, but sometimes I am just hot as heck. No one else is hot around me, but I'm hot as heck. So I'm like, I don't know, maybe that's like beginning stages of hot flashes for me. I'm not quite sure. But just being aware of, okay, these are some changes that are going to take place. This is how I can help myself, because with these changes, the way I'm feeding my body to make sure my hormones are where they need to be, like what they can be. Because when our hormones are all off balanced, we're all off balanced. And it's like, you, like, why aren't we doing more for ourselves? Like we do, especially like, we have a lot of mom listeners. We do so much for everyone else. We're making sure everyone's fed. We're making sure everyone's taken care of. We're making sure everybody's getting to practices. We're making sure this doctor appointment's at that doctor appointment. We're doing all of these things. Why aren't we just making these little changes in our life that can help us, that can really benefit us? And I think it's so important, because you don't want to be, luckily, like our girlfriend knew she was going to be starting. But you don't want to think like I'm just going crazy. Like I'm just horrible, whatever, going crazy. Knowing these types of things about your body and keeping track of it, I think is so important. And I have on my calendar at work, I actually put in different colors the days of the phases, so that I'm aware. If something's starting to bother me, I will look to see like what day I'm on, because I know, okay, I need just take a step back, go outside, maybe take a walk if I need to. Like you can do things to lighten your load when it needs to be lightened. I mean, it's a short period of our cycle that we really need to, kind of slow down. But if it's in that window, then I'm going to do it. I don't know. So I just think it's super important.
I agree. Well, thank you guys so much for swapping with us. We hope that you will listen to your bodies, and let us know if you have any questions, and also give us some feedback. Let us know what you are going through. And again, Dr. Mindy Pelz, she has,
Pelz.
yes,
Sorry.
she has her own podcast that you can listen to, but I highly recommend listening to Diary of a CEO. She has 2 podcasts that she does with him, and it is great. And I've actually listened to several of his podcasts now, and a lot of things about health, different aspects of health. So very, very good. And as always, come back for more with Ash and P.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.